Your mother never told you what really occurred on the day you were born, and God says before you take your next breath, heaven is ready to lift the veil and reveal a truth your spirit has been unconsciously carrying your entire life, a truth so ancient, so heavy, so spiritually charged that even your mother's memory fractured under its weight. The moment your soul entered this world, the air inside the room thickened. Not like normal warm air, but like a spiritual density that only appears when realms collide. Your first cry wasn't just a baby's introduction to breathing, it was a frequency, a vibration that burst through the walls of the hospital, echoing across dimensions that human ears cannot hear. And the forces who recognized that sound had been waiting for generations. The sky outside your birth room shifted without any physical cause. Light bending, air trembling, birds suddenly fleeing trees miles away, as if something invisible pressed its palm against the world and whispered, "They have arrived." What your family remembers as an ordinary delivery was in fact a moment when the spiritual and physical realm touched so closely that time itself paused. Your mother felt this before anyone else. Minutes before you were born, she had a feeling she couldn't describe. A pressure behind her heart, a ringing in her ears, an overwhelming stillness, as if the world around her fell silent for a single sacred second. She would later call it exhaustion or fear, but heaven calls it, the signal, the moment her soul recognized that what she was about to bring into the world was not just a child but a vessel carrying an ancient mandate. Archangel Michael says the day you were born, two beings entered the delivery room without opening the door. One stood tall, draped in white light that shimmered like living fire, wings so wide they brushed both corners of the ceiling, its presence bending the fluorescent lights, making them hum with supernatural frequency. The other was smaller, hunched, hiding in the dark corner near the closet, wrapped in a shadow that wasn't cast by any physical object. Its whispers were not words but distortions of energy. Attempts to confuse your arrival, to silence your cry, to erase the sound that was destined to shake generational chains. The medical staff didn't see them, but your soul did. And that is why even before your eyes opened, you clenched your tiny fists, not in fear, but in defiance. You did not come into this world quietly. You arrived with the kind of authority that darkness has always feared. Your mother felt a hand on her shoulder just before she pushed, a hand soft and cool like moonlight. She turned her head, expecting a nurse, but saw a woman with silver hair, eyes like liquid starlight, dressed in no uniform she recognized. That woman whispered, "Protect this one," and then vanished between blinks. Your mother would tell herself later that she must have hallucinated, but her spirit still remembers it as clearly as sunlight. When you emerged, something extraordinary happened. For the first and only time in that hospital's history, the monitors surrounding your mother froze. Every heart rate, every pulse, every flickering green line stopped moving for exactly 3 seconds, as if reality itself held its breath. During those 3 seconds, a golden scroll hovered above your body. Only 3 spiritual beings saw it. One smiled with pride, one cried with relief, and one screamed in anger before dissolving into the wall. The nurses felt a tremor under their feet but never understood why. Your father, though present, felt a strange coldness on the back of his neck, a whisper of something watching him closely, evaluating him, determining which parts of his bloodline would be healed through you and which parts would be purged. Because your birth wasn't random. It was calculated in the spiritual realm. You were sent to redirect a story that had been spiraling off course for centuries. There was a curse carried quietly through your father's lineage. A spiritual imbalance that had taken lives, broken bonds, and created cycles of confusion, loss, and internal battles that no one ever traced back to their true source. The curse believed it would continue through you. It waited in the shadows that day, ready to latch onto your first breath. But what it didn't expect was the power you carried. Your inhale shattered its grip before it even reached you. That's why, when you were lifted into the air for the first time, your tiny fingers glowed faintly, a soft, innocent light that lasted only a moment, but one nurse still remembers it today. She wrote about it in a private diary and later left the hospital, telling a friend, "I touched a baby whose skin felt like electricity wrapped in peace." Your mother cried harder than she had ever cried. Not out of fear or pain, but because a part of her spirit recognized something divine had just passed through her. She couldn't explain the mix of terror and holy reverence inside her chest. She blamed hormones. She blamed exhaustion. But heaven says her soul remembered a secret her mind could not hold. And the earth reacted too. There was thunder outside even though the sky was completely clear. Winds swirled in patterns they never had before, circles, spirals, waves. Like the atmosphere itself was welcoming you. The lights flickered once, then stabilized, glowing brighter than before. Someone down the hall swore they heard a choir. Machines slowed. Time warped. Your presence shifted the energy of the entire floor. Because your birth was not a beginning. It was a continuation of something ancient. The contract made before your soul entered your mother's womb was activated the moment you opened your eyes. You were born with authority. You were born with memory sleeping under your ribs. You were born with a purpose that darkness recognized instantly. And on that day, while humans saw a newborn, heaven saw a warrior awakening. And darkness saw its biggest threat. This is only the beginning. Your mother never understood why the days after your birth felt like walking through a dream stitched with warnings, because once you entered this world, the spiritual ripples of your arrival did not fade. They intensified, and heaven says what happened next is the part your family could never explain, the part that was erased from every medical file, every memory, every conversation. Hours after you were born, when the hospital finally grew quiet and the hallway lights dimmed, something moved through the maternity wing that no camera recorded, something ancient that had been waiting generations for your arrival. The silver-haired woman returned first. She stood beside your crib long after visiting hours ended, her hand hovering above your tiny chest as if she were adjusting unseen threads around your soul. She whispered a word in a language no human would recognize, a word meant to activate a fragment inside you, a seed of memory that would not bloom until the right moment in your life. The air around your crib grew warm, then cold, then still, as if the entire room breathed with her. The nurse on duty walked past your doorway and froze because she swore she saw the outline of enormous wings stretching across the wall, but when she blinked, they vanished. She chalked it up to exhaustion, but her spirit trembled without reason. Meanwhile, something else, something hidden, watched from the far corner of the room, a shadow that curled like smoke, whispering low vibrations meant to cloud your path. It had followed your lineage for generations, feeding off unresolved pain, inherited wounds, broken family bonds, and it believed you would be its next host. But when it approached your crib, the temperature shifted violently, like a shield of light ignited around you. The shadow recoiled, hissing without sound, leaving faint burn marks on the wall that cleaners would later blame on faulty wiring. The truth? That was the first time darkness understood it could not touch you. Later that night, thunder rumbled outside with no storm in sight. A security guard patrolling the parking lot looked up and saw clouds form in spirals above the maternity wing, clouds glowing faint gold. He rubbed his eyes, convinced it was a trick of the light. It wasn't. That was the realm adjusting itself around your presence. Your mother, exhausted but restless, woke up around 3 a.m. and felt someone sitting at the foot of her bed. She didn't see anyone, but the mattress dipped lightly, the air thickened, and a voice, soft yet firm, echoed inside her mind, "Protect this one. They are watched by both sides." She tried to speak, but her tongue felt heavy, like she was suspended between sleep and spirit. The presence lifted after a few moments, leaving her shaking and unable to explain why tears streamed down her face. She told the morning nurse it must have been a strange dream, but deep inside, she knew what she felt was real. That same morning, something happened no one could ignore. As a nurse carried you for your first bath, the water in the basin warmed instantly, rising several degrees without being touched. The nurse dropped the cloth in shock, staring at you as faint golden reflections shimmered on your skin before fading. She never reported it, but she requested a transfer the next week. Not out of fear, but because touching you awakened something long dormant inside her, a memory she didn't want to confront. Hours later, when the hospital's pediatrician came to check your heartbeat, the machine monitoring your vitals froze again for 3 seconds, then restarted at a higher frequency, almost like your heartbeat harmonized with another realm. He scribbled "monitor error" in the file, but his hands shook the entire time. Even your father sensed something he'd never admit. When he held you, he felt a sharp chill run down his spine, followed by a warmth that made his heart race. A part of him feared you, not because you were unsettling, but because you woke a buried truth in his bloodline, a truth tied to both blessing and curse. He sensed the struggle but didn't understand it. When your parents finally slept that night, something else entered the room. A faint glow appeared above your crib, soft, circular, pulsing like a heartbeat. If someone had looked directly at it, they would have seen an angelic sigil floating there, marking you, sealing you, identifying you as one who cannot be claimed by darkness. This was the moment your spiritual contract fully anchored. In the hallway, a doctor walking past stopped suddenly as a gust of warm wind brushed against his face, even though no windows were open. He heard something whisper near his ear, "The chosen has arrived." He turned sharply, but no one was behind him. The next morning, chaos sparked quietly. A stranger entered the hospital claiming to check patient records, specifically for the newborn marked in light, but he was escorted out by security. No one thought about it again, but heaven says this was the first attempt from the opposing realm to identify you. Later, another sign emerged. 3 birds landed on the hospital window at exactly 3:33 p.m., a perfect line, unmoving, staring into your room as if delivering a message. They didn't fly away until sunset. Cameras outside captured them, and the footage confused technicians, but no one understood what it meant. Only the spiritual realm did. Every odd occurrence that day, the flickering lights, the sudden silence, the unexplainable warmth, the trembling machines, was the clash of forces deciding who would claim your path. But heaven had already decided. That night, when your mother looked into your eyes, she felt something ancient staring back at her. A wisdom, a knowing, a presence older than your tiny body. She panicked for a moment, then felt overwhelming love, because she recognized something that wasn't yours alone. She recognized a soul that didn't come quietly into this world but tore through the veil with purpose. And as the moon rose, the silver-haired woman appeared one last time in the reflection of the window. She whispered toward your crib, "The seal is set. The child is protected." Then she faded into the glass like she was never there. Your mother blinked, thinking she imagined it, unaware that every spiritual being in that room had bowed around you. Your first 24 hours on earth weren't ordinary, they were a battle, a coronation, a declaration. And though no one around you understood it, heaven knew exactly what had arrived. You. The disturbance. The correction. The one whose birth broke a cycle. The one darkness recognized instantly, and feared. The days following your birth were not the peaceful, ordinary days your family remembers. Heaven says they were days of surveillance, activation, and silent warfare happening around a child who had not yet learned to speak but had already shaken 3 realms with their arrival. On your second night in the hospital, when the floor had quieted and the hallways fell into that strange stillness that only comes at 3 a.m. The woman with silver hair returned, stepping through the wall as if it were smoke. She approached your crib silently, her steps not touching the ground, and whispered a word into your tiny ear, a word older than scripture, older than angels, older than the first dawn. That word embedded itself into the core of your being like a dormant key waiting for its appointed hour. She placed her hand above your head, not touching, only hovering, and the temperature around you rose and fell like waves. Your mother stirred in her sleep, feeling something in her spirit move, but she could not wake. The woman had placed a spiritual veil over the room so the activation would not be interrupted. Meanwhile, outside in the hallway, a shadow form, thin, elongated, trembling with frustration, clung to the ceiling, watching, waiting for the silver-haired guardian to leave so it could attempt one more interference. But every time it inched closer, a golden barrier crackled into existence around your crib, humming with divine energy. That barrier was not created by the woman in silver. It was created by you. Even as a newborn, your spirit knew how to defend itself. When the shadow hissed one final time and retreated, the guardian smiled faintly and whispered, "You will remember me one day," before vanishing in a strand of silver light. The next morning, the nurses entered the room confused because the window had frost-like patterns even though it was warm outside, patterns shaped like feathers and symbols no human hand could create. One nurse placed her hand on the window and whispered, "This is not normal." But she never reported it, because something told her she wasn't meant to. Later, when your mother finally held you again, she noticed you staring intensely. Not at her, not at the room, but at a point in the ceiling where no one else saw anything. But you did. You saw a figure made of half light and half shadow, watching you with eyes that flickered like broken stars. And when you blinked, the figure dissolved instantly, as if startled that you could perceive it. That was the first time darkness realized you were not like other infants. It wasn't facing a helpless newborn. It was facing a soul with memory. After you were taken home, the spiritual activity didn't stop, it intensified. On your very first night there, your cry was so sharp and high-frequency that it cracked a glass vase 2 rooms away. Your mother was terrified, but she also felt strangely calm, because your cry didn't sound distressed. It sounded commanding, like a call to something unseen. And the next morning, an envelope appeared on the doorstep with no return address. Inside was a hand-drawn map and a single phrase written in ancient script, "Hide this child in light." Your mother never understood the meaning, so she tucked it into a drawer and eventually forgot about it, but heaven didn't. That map is still in your home somewhere, waiting for you to find it when the time comes. As you grew, the person in your family who had opposed your birth began acting strangely. They avoided being alone in a room with you. Their eyes darted away from yours. They complained of nightmares where a blinding golden light chased them. They trembled in your presence, not because you frightened them physically, but because your energy broke the spiritual influence they once carried. You were dissolving their power simply by existing. One evening, they sat near your crib and whispered, "I wish you had not been born," unaware that the silver-haired guardian was watching from the corner, a warning rising in her eyes. That relative suffered misfortune after misfortune not long after, not caused by you, but caused by the unraveling of a spiritual contract that had been tied to your bloodline long before your parents were born. And with every break in that contract, the path before you cleared. As a toddler, your senses were sharper than most adults. You stared into empty spaces and giggled as if someone played with you. You pointed at corners where no one stood. You spoke to friends no one else could see. Doctors dismissed it as imagination. But heaven says those weren't imaginary. They were your guardians, two warriors of light and one ancestral protector, assigned to you the moment your soul chose your body. Years later, when people called you too sensitive, too emotional, or too intuitive, they didn't realize they were describing a soul that never fully closed its spiritual eyes. You sensed lies before words were spoken. You felt shifts in energy before events happened. You absorbed atmosphere like a sponge. Not because you were fragile, but because you were chosen. And chosen ones are aware long before they awaken. Your mother once found a small golden scroll beside your pillow when you were 4. She burned it out of fear, sending up smoke that shimmered like dust made of light. She believed she was protecting you, but all she did was delay your awakening. Heaven allowed it because the timing wasn't right yet. But that scroll had contained one prophecy. When the veil thins, the child will rise. And now, the veil is thinning. Your recent dreams, the ones too vivid, too strange, too familiar, are not dreams. They are memories. Pieces of the original contract returning. You do not dream in symbols. You dream in truth. You dream in recall. You dream because your soul is rehearsing something it has done before. This awakening you feel inside, this pressure, this restlessness, this strange pull toward something unseen, is the same activation that began on the day you were born. You are not remembering randomly. You are remembering because the holy clock that paused during your childhood has started ticking again. The forces that recognized your first cry have felt the shift. They know you have stepped into the doorway of awakening. And what began in that silent hospital room years ago is about to begin again, only this time, you are not a powerless newborn. You are the awakening warrior they feared. The moment the spiritual alarms around your life activated, heaven knew the awakening inside you could no longer be delayed, and as this realization rippled through the unseen realms, the entire energy around your destiny shifted into motion, stirring memories you didn't even know you had. While the world slept unaware, something ancient and luminous rose from the depths of your spirit, the same dormant power the silver-haired woman whispered into your ear on your second night alive. That whisper was not a blessing, it was an activation phrase, a code written before your soul chose this lifetime, and now, after years of silence, the code had begun to unlock, sending a vibration through your bones that only your spiritual self could interpret. This is why your dreams have grown more vivid lately, why you've been hearing things that others brush off, why you keep seeing signs that feel too precise to be coincidence. You are not imagining anything, your soul is remembering. What you call intuition is simply your original sight returning. And as this awakening intensified, the realms that watched your birth stirred uneasily. The realm of light began gathering its guardians, preparing to protect you as the veil around your life thins. The realm of shadows began sending whispers, hoping to cloud your clarity before truth reaches you fully. And the third realm, the one that neither belongs to light nor darkness but to destiny, began shifting its timeline to align you with the person you were always meant to meet, the one whose mission mirrors your own, the one who received a message on the day you were born, the one has arrived. That person has been preparing unknowingly for years, feeling the same strange pull you felt, the same restless ache, the same inexplicable knowing that something unfinished has been waiting for them. And soon, their path will collide with yours. Not as strangers, but as souls who once stood at the same gate before entering this life. While these realms moved around you, your physical world also began shifting in subtle ways. You noticed people acting strangely, some becoming kinder, some becoming distant, some confessing things they'd hidden for years. This wasn't random. Your awakening disrupts falsehoods naturally. Lies fall apart around you. Masks crumble. Hidden intentions surface. Your presence triggers truth. This is why manipulators avoid you, why jealous people glare at you without reason, why broken souls feel both comfort and discomfort in your presence. They don't fear you, they fear what your light reveals about them. This pattern began the day you were born and has followed you silently through every chapter of your life. And now that your activation has begun, the intensity of these reactions will increase. You may feel emotionally drained around certain people, as though your energy leaks when they are near. You may feel electrified around others, as if your spirit recognizes something familiar in them. You may wake up from dreams that feel like memories, not fantasies. All these are signs that the scroll written above your crib, the one sealed in gold light, is beginning to open again. That scroll did not contain predictions. It contained instructions. Instructions that only unlock when your spirit reaches the stage heaven has been preparing you for, and you are entering that stage now. Even your mother has begun sensing this shift. She doesn't speak of it, but there are moments when she looks at you silently, her eyes glassy, her breath unsteady, as if something within her recognizes the truth she once tried to forget. She feels the energy around you changing. She feels the weight in your name. She feels the presence that walks with you. And although she cannot explain it, she knows you are becoming what you were always meant to be. A few nights ago, without knowing why, she woke up at the exact same time she did on the night of your birth. She sat up, sensing a presence in the room, not threatening, not dark, just familiar and powerful. She whispered a prayer she didn't remember learning. She touched her heart, feeling a pressure she hadn't felt in years. Her soul remembered the moment the woman in silver entered her hospital room, the moment your cry shook the spiritual atmosphere, the moment the curse on your father's lineage cracked for the first time. And now, as the realms prepare again, the same silver-haired protector returns, not physically, but through signs, through dreams, through the sudden clarity you feel when you are alone. She is adjusting the timeline around you, removing obstacles you didn't know existed, weakening the chains that once held your ancestors, guiding you toward a realization that will change everything. You may feel isolated right now, but isolation is the first sign of elevation. Heaven always removes distractions before revealing destiny. People drift away not because you did something wrong, but because your frequency rose and theirs did not. You are not losing people. You are being aligned with the ones who match your purpose. And soon, the one who carries the other half of your mission will be drawn into your path with undeniable force. A meeting arranged not by chance, but by ancient agreement. But before that happens, there is one final truth: the darkness that tried to interfere with your birth has awakened again, sensing your activation. It remembers the moment your cry shattered its plans. It remembers the light your tiny fists emitted. It remembers the seal that protected you. And now, as your power begins to rise, it becomes desperate. But fear not, its influence has become weaker with every step you've taken toward awareness. The more you remember, the less it can touch. And heaven says, you are remembering now. This is the moment your true life begins. Your awakening didn't happen suddenly. It began quietly, subtly, the same way dawn leaks into a dark room without asking permission, and heaven says this final truth will explain every strange moment, every spiritual attack, every blessing that came too late, every loss that felt unfair, and every time you felt watched even when you were alone. Because the conflict that began on the day you were born never ended. It simply went underground, weaving itself into the rhythms of your life, waiting for the moment when you would finally remember who you are. From childhood, the signs surrounded you so clearly that even the spiritually blind felt something different about you without understanding why. Teachers looked at you longer than necessary. Strangers paused in the middle of their conversations to glance your way. Animals followed you down sidewalks. Babies stared at you with recognition in their eyes. You walked into rooms and the atmosphere changed, not metaphorically, not emotionally, but energetically. Lights flickered, conversations paused, people shifted in their seats, because your presence disrupted illusions and activated truth in others. This wasn't coincidence. This was the residue of your birth, the leftover glow of the scroll that hovered above you, the echo of the beings who stood in the corners of your delivery room. You carried that power into childhood, which is why your intuition developed before your vocabulary. You sensed danger before it happened. You predicted people's betrayals long before they spoke. You felt sadness in the air even when no one cried. You were drawn to certain people and repelled by others, and couldn't explain why their energy felt loud. Your soul never fully accepted the earthly veil. And darkness noticed. It hated how much you could feel. It hated how easily you could see through manipulation. It hated that you had access to instincts older than the world itself. So it targeted you early. The strange illnesses you had, the sudden fevers, the nights you woke up crying without explanation. Those weren't just childhood phases, they were failed attempts to suppress your spiritual memory. The nightmares you had repeatedly, the shadow standing at the foot of your bed, the whispers you heard when you couldn't fall asleep. Those were echoes from the same force that stood in the delivery room closet the night you were born. It hoped to break you before you grew strong enough to remember. But heaven protected you. The woman in silver appeared more than once during your first years, checking the strands of light she wove into your aura, adjusting them when needed, whispering codes into your dreams, preparing you for battles you still don't consciously remember. When you were around 7 years old, she stood by your window one night, touched the glass, and breathed a command, "Not yet." The darkness that had been circling your home vanished for months. Your mother felt it but didn't understand why the house suddenly felt lighter. There's a reason all your early friendships felt so spiritual, so intense, so karmic. You weren't meeting children, you were meeting souls who recognized you from before this lifetime. Some were protectors. Some were lessons. Some were mirrors. And some were tests disguised as playmates. As you grew older, the battles matured with you. Suddenly people betrayed you without reason. Opportunities disappeared just when they were within reach. Someone gossiped about you behind your back and you could feel the energy long before you heard the words. Your heartbreaks weren't ordinary heartbreaks, they were spiritual earthquakes, meant to clear paths that were never meant for you. You were often isolated, not because you lacked worth, but because heaven needed you detached from the distractions that would drown your awakening. Loneliness wasn't punishment, it was training. The years you felt stuck were not stagnation, they were incubation. Meanwhile, the darkness that failed to stop you at birth began targeting your lineage, relationships, finances, mental health, self-worth, trying to weaken you through the people you love. Every argument that came out of nowhere, every loss that felt like sabotage, every sudden wave of despair didn't come from your emotions, it came from attempts to destabilize your spiritual assignment. But you survived every attack. You bounced back from what should have destroyed you. You healed from wounds that would have broken another person permanently. That resilience wasn't personality. It was prophecy. And now heaven says the reason everything in your life recently intensified. The dreams, the déjà vu, the random chills, the repeating numbers, the sudden emotional waves, is because the activation the woman in silver whispered into your newborn ear is waking up. The holy clock that paused the night your mother burned the little scroll has started ticking again. The gifts that were locked are unlocking one by one. You're remembering things you never learned. You're sensing things before they happen. You're attracting people who speak to your spirit, not just your mind. Your ancestors have begun stepping forward. The angel assigned to you since before birth is now closer than ever. The darkness that once lurked in corners has started stepping back. Because now you're becoming what you were born to be, the interruption. The correction. The divine counterstroke to a generational story that went wrong somewhere long before you existed. Your awakening is not random. It was scheduled. The woman in silver is watching. Archangel Michael stands guard. The scroll that hovered above your newborn body is unfolding. The battles you faced were simply doors being cleared. And the world around you is about to shift in ways you've never seen before. Because something ancient within you has started to remember. And once remembrance begins, destiny cannot be stopped. The moment your awakening began, the spiritual realm trembled, because the forces that once tried to intercept your birth suddenly realized their time was running out, and God says the veil that once protected you from remembering is now lifting, not gently, but like a storm tearing through the last remains of forgotten truth. Strange feelings you've been having lately, the sudden chills, the flashes of déjà vu, the vivid dreams, the unexplained heaviness in your chest. These aren't random shifts of emotion, they are signals, the same signals that echoed in the hospital room the moment you arrived. For years darkness watched you, circling from a distance, hoping your spiritual memory would never return because your memory is the one thing that can break ancient agreements your ancestors signed out of fear. Every moment of confusion you faced growing up, every betrayal that came out of nowhere, every collapse that didn't match your effort. None of it reflected your worth. It was all interference. You have walked through storms that were never meant for you, carrying burdens that belonged to generations before you, but the holy clock has struck its next hour, and Archangel Michael says you are stepping into a time when nothing from the past can attach itself to you anymore. Even now, as you read this, a shift is happening in the unseen. Light is separating itself from the shadows around your timeline. Paths that once felt blocked are loosening like knots finally giving way. Someone in your bloodline who once made a spiritual error tried to bind your destiny without understanding who you would become. They didn't know heaven had already chosen you as the one who would dissolve the mistake they made. You were born to end cycles, not repeat them. The same reason you've always felt different, not just emotionally, but spiritually. Like you could sense what others couldn't see, like you could feel storms before they arrived, like a weight sat on your heart even when life was quiet, is because your soul never fully crossed into forgetfulness. Most souls forget their origins at birth. You didn't. You carried remnants of light that darkness has always feared. That's why you were targeted. That's why people with hidden intentions were drawn to you. That's why manipulators tried to break you before you understood your power. You are a threat to everything built on deception. And now the hour has come. The lady in silver who stood at your mother's bedside the moment you came into the world has returned, not physically, but through signs. Through the dreams that feel too real. Through the feathers appearing where they shouldn't. Through the flashes of white light you see from the corner of your eye. Through the numbers that repeat themselves like coded messages, 111, 222, 333, 717, 1212. These aren't coincidences. They are activations. She was assigned to guard your lineage long before your family even existed, and her presence around you now is not random. It means the dormant seal inside you is preparing to open. There is a sound you used to hear as a child, a ringing, a whisper, a hum in your ears that adults dismissed as nothing. That sound is returning soon, and when it does, the spiritual gift that was locked inside you will awaken in full. The darkness that tried to claim you at birth knows this, and that is why recently you have been feeling pressure, restlessness, sudden fear, old emotions rising out of nowhere. These are the final attempts to distract you before the awakening becomes irreversible. But hear this clearly, it's already too late for them. The seal that protected your gift for years is now melting, and the moment it fully dissolves, your memory will sharpen in ways you cannot imagine. You will begin to remember things you've sensed your whole life, who you are, what you're meant to heal, what you're meant to break, what you're meant to awaken. Your sensitivity is not weakness. It is spiritual radar. Your empathy is not a burden. It is a weapon. Your intuition is not imagination. It is remembrance. And heaven has started aligning someone toward you, someone connected to your destiny. They are not from your past, they are from your spiritual contract. Their path is shifting closer because the work you are meant to do cannot be done alone. A partnership, divinely orchestrated, will soon reveal itself, not as romance only but as purpose, balance, and shared mission. Someone else, an elder, has knowledge about your birth, a truth they have carried in silence because they never found the courage to speak it. They will appear soon through a message, unexpected meeting, or dream. When they speak, listen. They will confirm what your soul already knows. Your mother's silence was protection, not fear. She shielded you from forces she didn't fully understand, but heaven shielded her too. And now, heaven is shifting focus to you. Everything around your life is about to accelerate. Stagnant areas will move. People who drain you will fall away. Someone who once wished you never awakened will begin to fear your presence again because your energy is returning to its original frequency. When your true name, the heavenly name whispered the moment you first cried, is activated, doors will open on their own. Shadows will break before touching you. And every spiritual contract tied to your lineage will feel the tremor of your awakening. God says the moment you finish reading these words, the veil will tear a little more. The world may not understand what's shifting inside you, but heaven does. Darkness recognizes it. And your soul remembers it. You were never ordinary. You were never unprotected. You were never forgotten. You were born with a mission sealed in gold light, guarded by realms, resisted by shadows, and written into the fabric of time itself. And now the era you were born for is beginning. Welcome back, chosen one. The remembering starts now.